Hey, Sam! What's Nemo's dad's name?
Marlin?
Is it Merlin or Marlin?
Marlin. That's Marlin.
Damn it, I called him Merlin earlier. Hello everybody and welcome back to Teacups and Toadstools. You read the title of this video. We all know why you're here. You want to know, what controversial opinions do I have about Pixar? Well, let me tell you, you will not be disappointed today because I have a lot of controversial opinions, which is why I'm making this video in the first place. I know this trend is over, you know, but I just watched Soul with my family and I was like, now is the time to rank all the Pixar movies because yes, I have seen them all. What did you think? I mean, of course I have. So without further ado, this is my comprehensive Pixar ranking list. I will be using a tier list sort of system, but I will be ranking them all from least favorite to favorite. So the order in which these are going will be from my least favorite film to my absolute favorite film. Yes, and I also want to give the disclaimer that yes, I do have some unpopular opinions in here, and by not having movies that are my absolute favorite that others might really enjoy, your opinion is so valid and I'm so glad that you love these movies. They're all great. Pixar is, you know, like a lot of their films that they've produced are just very heartfelt, very enjoyable. It's okay if you disagree with me, totally good, and I would expect the same in return, that you respect my opinions, because I know that some of these are gonna be a little bit controversial. And how could I forget? We have my Aristocats mug, it's back. This is the closest thing I have to Pixar is like one Disney mug, so. Hi folks, I'm editing this video and I just realized that I forgot to give a spoiler warning. So I basically mildly spoil pretty much all of the Pixar movies and I majorly spoil some of them, so just a heads up that I will be spoiling things in this video. So I've sort of labeled my tiers with, you know, my D tier is wouldn't watch again. That's the subtitle of this tier. My least favorite Pixar movie, surprise, surprise, is Cars 2. I think that this is kind of something that a lot of people agree on. Cars 2 is just like the definition of a cash grab of a sequel because it's just not very well thought out. The plot points are silly, you know, and I know that the Cars merchandising is, I think, Disney's most lucrative, so that's why they made a sequel, because they were like, all right, well, kids love cars, so let's make 2 Cars movies, you know. So I totally, you know, business-wise, totally understand why it was made, but yeah, doesn't mean I can't be disappointed in the movie. It's not very good. And the second movie on my D tier, which is the second highest, is The Good Dinosaur. I watched this on a plane and I can't remember it. I don't really remember what the plot was. Like, I know the general idea of like the dinosaurs are the ones more able to communicate or talk to one another than the humans, and the human character is like this animal. You know, it's cute, the animation is pretty, I think it's like worth a watch, but it's definitely not one that was very memorable for me. That's all I have to really say about it, which probably denotes my opinion of it, but yeah. All right, moving on to the C tier, which I have as meh, you know, middle of the ground, but like kind of not my fave for one reason or another. So next on the list is the original Toy Story. Yes, I know, I love the Toy Story franchise, but the original is definitely my least favorite. This is personal as well as just like, I think, you know, as a studio, animation wasn't quite as crisp back then, which is totally not their fault. That's just like a, you know, aging thing. But I was really afraid of this movie when I was younger, and since then I've had a tough time watching it, even as I've gotten older. So because of that, it's a little lower on the list. I totally understand that that's like a personal bias thing. But yeah, it was like the Sid deconstructing the toys always really scared me, and it still kind of does because I watched it when I was so young. So yeah, that's why Toy Story 1 is this low on the list. Okay, so next up on the list is Cars 3. Cars 3 was not inherently bad, like objectively it was like pretty good, but I think my problem with Cars 3 is it is sort of like a plot that's used a lot in like sports movies, and I don't think it necessarily needed to be applied to the Cars universe personally. like the whole like aging sports star is like getting a little too rusty for, you know, his sport because he's aging, and that's like really normal, and you know, him dealing with that, you know, again, very heartfelt plot line. I totally like understand why people do like this movie and maybe sometimes rank it as the best Cars movie, but personally this is a version that I would prefer to watch as like a sports movie of like an athlete who's getting older, who's struggling with that, rather than Cars. Next up is A Bug's Life. This movie it's okay. I think it's fine. That's kind of why it's here. I don't have much else to say about it other than that. I have no, you know, personal, sentimental connection to it. Like, this is one I definitely watched later in life. I didn't really watch it as a kid. So you know, I have no reason to put it higher than kind of like a, it's okay. All right, next is Finding Dory. This movie is here because yes, I did cry when I watched it, but like Pixar always makes you cry though, you know. Pixar went through a phase around this period of time where they started making sequels of like their older movies, and this was, I think, kind of the first to do that, and it was really unnecessary, and the only reason they did it is because like Ellen DeGeneres is, you know, great as Dory, even though, you know, now we know what is kind of happening with her. But I think it's okay. It's a movie that didn't need to be made, but there were some enjoyable moments in it. You know, I really loved revisiting the character of Dory. You know, she's really funny and so cute, but I do think that sometimes, like, she's a good example of someone who's a side character where it would be hard for them to be the protagonist, because so much of their humor gets lost when they're the protagonist, because it's like, it kind of gets old when it's done over and over again, whereas like if they're just a side character, you know, they're there for that funny quip line, you know, with Merlin, I think is the dad's name, every now and then. But like if it's all the time, it's kind of like, okay, we get it, like funny, Dory has a short-term memory, you know, and jokes aren't as well timed when that happens, so you know, a lot got lost for me at this one. But yeah, that's my thoughts on Finding Dory. The last one in my C tier is Onward. This is I think the release previous to Soul. I enjoyed this movie. I thought it was good. I think the reason why it's just here is it kind of feels like it's not quite up to like Pixar standards. You know, I think it was like missing some things. I didn't really cry, which again, not necessary, but like, you know, it didn't have that like deeper emotional connection. I did love the world of this movie. I thought that it was really interesting to watch. And the world building was really cool, and I really loved like all the characters. I had such a good time with them. Chris Pratt, of course, absolute legend, killed it. And I liked like the, you know, representation of the single mother. I think a lot of times in like older Disney movies, the mom is the one who dies. And so in this film, it's kind of cool that like the mom, it's a single mom. So it kind of changes that narrative up, which I think is really, really cool. But yeah, this one I just didn't enjoy as much as I thought I would. I thought it was, you know, it was okay. Not bad. Again, like no Pixar movies are bad. You know, I think that they all have something enjoyable about them, but yeah, so that's why it's kind of at the higher end of the C tier, but not quite into the B tier. All right, next up is the B tier, and this is gonna be my most controversial tier. I already kind of see this coming. So my B tier is labeled enjoyable, but not life-changing. So these are movies that like I really liked, but they didn't like have an impact on my life. And not every movie is gonna do that. You know, every time you see a movie, you know, 1 in 10 is probably gonna have a lasting impact on you. And so these are all, I enjoyed them, but I had my problems with them. First up is The Incredibles 2. I really enjoyed The Incredibles 2, but they did pull that Disney twist villain thing that's trendy right now, you know, and I knew from the beginning who was behind all of it because of that, you know, so it was just kind of like less enjoyable. But I did love seeing the family shenanigans again, just these characters. I love them and the actors. They have such good chemistry as a family, and I absolutely love that. So anything with these characters, I'm just all over it. But yeah, I didn't love this movie. I did think it was cool we got to see a little bit of Elastigirl as like a separate, you know, like her maybe leading the family rather than Bob, but like even before, the first movie isn't necessarily like anti that, it's more like work together as a family, and it's the family dynamic, and this one explored her separate from the family. I felt like there were moments that were a little cheesy and a little predictable, and yeah, but I did love like the personality of the villain. Like I thought she was kind of a neat character. Though I wish they had just gone all the way and like committed to like just having her be the bad guy the whole time. I honestly think that would have been like pretty interesting. Next on my list is WALL-E. Yay! Let's first talk about the things that I like about this movie. I love the robot scenes. They're so cute, and they're adorable little robot designs, and the animation is really cool. I love Hello Dolly throughout. I think that's so cute. I'm a huge fan of that. I love the message, like the importance of the environment. But here's my problem with this movie. I think that there are other movies that do this better, and I think that this movie, in my opinion, has some pacing problems. Like there are moments that just feel really slow that weren't intentionally made that way. Like, yeah, I don't know. I had trouble with like the complete like momentum of this piece. Like, it's okay if a film is slow, but it needs to be intentional and still hold your attention even when it is slow. Personally, I know this is not a popular opinion. So WALL-E is not my favorite Pixar movie. I honestly, like, I don't love rewatching it because it's just like, it feels a little like I have to like get through it. In my opinion, so if you're looking for an environmental movie that has a similar message, but in my opinion, I just like better, Nausicaa and the Valley of the Wind by Studio Ghibli, I don't know, is a very good example of that. It does this in a really creative way that doesn't feel like cheesy sci-fi-y. Those are my general thoughts on that. And also check out Nausicaa and let me know what you think, and let me know if you disagree with me. That's totally cool. You know, I'm open to hearing new opinions always. Yeah, that is kind of my thoughts on WALL-E. That's why it's very middle of the road for me. It's not my favorite, definitely not my least favorite, but didn't love it. I'm gonna get fire for the things that are above WALL-E. Honestly, people are gonna be like, how could you rank this above WALL-E? Next up though is Monsters University. This movie was really a fun time, but that's all it was. It was just a good time. I enjoyed, again, like we saw the characters we loved, you know, back at it again when they were young, and it's so cute, and I love that, and I love like competition-based storylines, like so much. They're so cute. But you know, my problems with this movie are sort of just like similar with most sequels. Like, it's just not as good as the original, even though it's enjoyable and we get some lore, which is fun. I feel like a good prequel changes the way you watch the original material. This didn't really, again, it's a good time, but it's just not that effective, and it's just like a classic underdog team story, you know, which is good. Again, enjoyable, don't hate it, but okay, next up, this one's gonna get fire too because it's above WALL-E. But next up is Cars. Okay, full admission for a second, I like Cars. I know, I'm sorry, I know, I'm crazy, but I enjoyed Cars. It was one that I watched a lot when I was a kid, so that could be part of it. And I know there's like questionable things about the Cars universe, and everyone's like, why like are certain things the way they are, and all of that. I totally understand why people don't like Cars. I get it. But I just love a like classic story where your protagonist at the beginning is not necessarily likable, and then they learn like compassion, and I really like that story arc personally, so that's one reason why I enjoy it. That's basically why. And I like all the characters. I think they're really fun, and you know, each one, you know what they're like, and this is a good example of like writers using archetypes really well, especially with the more minor characters. I think that that's really cool. I think it's just a fun time. Again, it's not perfect, that's why it's in the B tier. I think that there are parts that are cheesy. I think there are other Pixar movies that are more expertly crafted, that are more sentimental, more emotional, but I really love the, you know, unlikable main character learns compassion, learns love, and learns what really matters. And that, my friends, is why I like Cars. And then the last movie in my B tier is actually Soul, which is the most recent Pixar movie. I think that this movie is very good. I like the concept a lot, but this is an example, I feel like, where Pixar was sort of held back creatively because they had to cater to an audience of children. This movie tackles a lot of themes that like are resonant with adults. It tackles life and death, like what it means to be alive, and those are big themes that I think that they could have delved a little more in the conversation about if they were able to cater to an older audience, which they weren't. This is a kid's studio, and so I totally understand why they couldn't go there because it would be too dark for children. But yeah, that's generally my thoughts. I enjoyed the plot. I think the animation is really, really cool, especially with the like afterlife sort of place. I think is really cool looking, and there were funny moments that made me laugh. Yeah, that's kind of why it's like high B tier, but like I think they could have done more with it if this wasn't a children's movie, which is just inherently the paradox of Pixar. All right, my A tier, which is the largest tier, which are just, it's labeled inherently good movies. Like these are all solid. The next up is Finding Nemo. This movie was one of the first I saw in the theaters. I saw it with my dad when I was little, and I didn't like it. We actually had to leave early because I was scared of the sharks, but as I got older, I did get over that. Finding Nemo is really, really good. It kind of gets a little slow in the middle, which is why it's not like my absolute favorite, but I think it's really cute, and I really love like the father-son dynamic and how like Merlin, it's Merlin, right? Marlin. Hey Sam! What's Nemo's dad's name? Is it Merlin or Marlin?
Marlin. Yes, Marlin.
Damn it, I called him Merlin earlier. But yeah, so Finding Nemo. I really love Marlin's character. I think he's just a really interesting character, and I like that the protagonist isn't Nemo. I like that it's Marlin. And you know, even though it's named after Nemo, because Marlin is inherently the one who changes. Really great. Again, like I said, a little slow in the middle. I struggle a little, and the girl who has the braces freaks me out. Not a fan. But that's why she's there, I know, but it's totally creepy. Woo! That would be a fun Halloween costume, actually. Noted. Alright, next up is Toy Story 4. I know that this was just a classic, like, cash grab situation. I know, I get it, but I liked it a lot. I really did enjoy this movie. I think it was a neat end to Woody's arc. It was a movie that I think had like legs to run one more mile. Like I think that it's neat to see Woody alone instead of as a part of this unit. I really like that Bo Peep came back. I think she's so fun and such a great character. I think it's cool when movies like bring back characters that haven't been in it since like the first movie, or like TV shows that do that where they'll bring back a character that in season 5 that you haven't seen since season 2. That's like one of my favorite things because I love it's like a little surprise. You're like, oh my god, like it's this person, I haven't seen him forever. I thought that the villain was really interesting. It like explored like a new area of like toy like lore, which was really cool. I didn't think there was any left after 3 movies, but apparently there is more left. And I thought that the new characters they introduced were super fun. I really liked them. Yeah, overall enjoyable. Again, like doesn't hit quite as hard as the other 2, which obviously are above this, but yeah, I liked it. I thought it was pretty good. Speaking of Toy Story, next up is Toy Story 2. So Jessie is probably my favorite Toy Story character, and that montage with the song and Jessie playing with her old owner, it just like brings tears to my eyes every time I watch it. I absolutely love it. This movie is awesome. I absolutely love it. I probably said that a million times. But yeah, Toy Story is not, like I had to be older to enjoy Toy Story more because I was so afraid from the first one that I had to watch most of these a little bit later in life, which is totally fine. I'm trying to think why it's lower. The bad guy is kind of like fine, you know, that's fine. I love the Barbies. I think that's super fun. But yeah, this one, you know, besides that one Jessie scene, this one didn't like personally resonate with me as much as like, you know, the one that is coming, you know. It's pretty good. Next up is Up. I love Up. The first 10 minutes objectively are like some of the best in animated history. It's so awesome. But I didn't love the rest of the movie as much. I think that like it's a neat plot, I really enjoy it, but there are moments that are a little slower, though what redeems it for me and why it's a little bit higher than some of these other movies is I really loved the characters in this movie. I think that it was a neat character arc to the end, you know, and it's a story that I feel like isn't told as much in children's media, you know, of the elderly person like feeling like their life is over and then, you know, deciding that maybe they have life left, they need to live it to the fullest, which I love. And I think it brings up a lot of the conversation that Soul does, but in a way that like can be told in a children's movie, if that makes sense. Like why life is important and why it's important to be present in it even when you're older and you may not have as much time left. And I really love Russell, I love Doug, I love all the characters. That's what redeems the sort of slower plot for me. Like whereas Wall-E, you know, it's slow and it's slow the whole time and I don't really love any of the characters or connect with them personally because they're robots, which is adorable and cute. But this movie, even when it gets a little slow in the middle, has characters that I root for, and so every moment is enjoyable even if it is a little bit laggy. I really like this movie. I think it's one that I have liked more as I've gotten older, so we'll see if it gets in the S tier in the next year or two. Next up is Inside Out. This movie is such a fun time. I love it, and I love the message and the creativity of just how they, you know, personified things that happen in the brain with characters and things that are graspable is really, really cool, and the animation is freaking amazing. I love the animation in this movie. I'm absolutely obsessed with Sadness. She's my fave. She's such an icon. Yeah, I think I also just kind of wish the other emotions were featured a little bit more. Like in the ads for this movie, they like really emphasized like all of the emotions and that they were all going to be sort of part of this film, and they weren't as much as the sadness and joy, which is fine, but I wish they had been in it a little bit more personally. But you know, that's a small thing. Like such a good movie. The scene with Bing Bong, I cried so much. I cried so much in that scene. I am a movie crier. I totally know I am. And so that really got me. But yeah, good movie. Love it. And it's so funny. And the kid who's like, I would die for Riley, like her imaginary boyfriend. Oh, legendary. And the last in my A tier, and perhaps the most topical at this moment in time, is Ratatouille. Yeah, that you know, that TikTok musical. Yeah, this is the movie for that. I love Ratatouille. I think it's really, really underrated. This is just such an example of Pixar and how they think about things. Like as a studio, they're like, well, what if a rat, the most disgusting creature on this planet, wanted to cook, which is like a place, like, you know, when you're a cook, you need to be very sanitary and very clean. Like it's like someone who totally is at odds with what they're able to achieve, but yet they're able to, right? So yeah, I really love this movie a lot. I love all of the characters. Like every member of the kitchen staff is like just beautiful. Love, even if they have one line, they're all very specific, which I really enjoy. And I really love Remy's brother. He's a legend. I think my only complaint with this movie is Linguini. Linguini, he is sort of less of an interesting character, but it is Remy's story, so I understand why that is. But yeah, next up is my S tier. This is where things are also gonna get a little bit controversial because I have, yeah, we'll get going on it. So the first one on my S tier, and these are all on my S tier because it's just like I couldn't find something necessarily negative about it. I just like some of them more than others. It's just a personal preference thing. So I'll probably only be talking about the positives of these films. And the first on my S tier, so next up, is Toy Story 3. This movie is so good, and it, you know, I feel like the Toy Story movies were released like sort of at the perfect time in my life when I needed to watch them. So it's like even the movies themselves like grow up with the audience, which I think is really, really neat. So I watched this movie right when this sort of, you know, plot was happening to me personally, like with Andy and him growing up. Cried like a baby at the end. I love Lotso. I don't necessarily consider him like a twist villain because I think that twist happens pretty early on. Like it's not something where they wait the whole movie and then he's the bad guy. It's like halfway through we find out, and then it creates the second act of the film, which I think is really effective and really well done. God, yeah, so many good things about this film. I'm obsessed. Next up is a movie that I actually did not watch in childhood, but I watched when I was older and I fell in love with it. It's so good, and I'm so sad I didn't watch it when I was younger, but it is Monsters, Inc. This movie, I freaking love it. I don't really know why I love it so much because there's nothing in it that's like particularly like emotional. I just love the idea of like, you know, the whole world of like the monster world. I think the world building is really neat in this one. Like they don't over explain things, and it's just like, relatable and funny, and I love Mike and Sully's chemistry and their different personalities and how they deal with certain situations, and I love the ending and how like laughs end up being the supply of the monster world rather than like causing fear. And I think that that's kind of like, that's a really cool message to send to young kids who might be fearful of that when they're little. Next up is Coco. Coco is a great movie. Absolutely love it. It hits sort of a personal vein for me with, you know, the family dynamics and all of that. I love the animation of the like afterlife. It's so cool. It's just like gorgeous, and the designs of like the animal sidekicks, I can't remember what they're called, but absolutely stunning and lovely. And I love the family characters, the characters that Coco meets in the afterlife, I think is really, really cool. This movie is very interesting because yes, I think from the beginning it's pretty predictable that the guitarist isn't gonna be his great-great-grandfather. I think that's pretty obvious, but I didn't see coming that the guy he was traveling with in the afterlife was gonna be his great-great-grandfather. That was a plot twist for me, and maybe that's just me being silly, but I think the movie set it up really well in a way that where that did surprise me. Right at the end. The music is stunning in this film. Absolutely lovely. I love whenever Pixar includes singing in their films. I just love that, and so the music was awesome for this movie. Yeah, Coco. 10 out of 10. Absolutely love it. The second to highest, I guess, so we're second place. And second place is The Incredibles. I love The Incredibles. I love every scene in this movie. It is so well crafted and the characters are so good. I could just watch them do anything and I would be intrigued. I think that the concept of this movie is really neat. It's like, yes, it's a superhero movie, but what's going on behind the scenes? Family matters, like all of that. Absolutely love it. I love the voice acting in this film. I don't say that a lot. Like, I think like, you know, Pixar, it's like the voice acting is sort of, you know, it's good, but I think that the actors that they hired for this one have a really interesting, yeah, I don't know, just, they're really good. I really like Violet especially. I think she does a really, really good job. And Holly Hunter, perfectly cast. Absolutely obsessed. Yeah, this film is amazing, and Edna Mode is like maybe the best character of all time. I mean, who we're kidding, she's amazing. Yeah, so funny, absolutely obsessed with her. And my number one film, probably scratching your head. What did she forget? What movie could she have forgotten that is in her first place spot? Well, here we go, folks. Okay, my favorite Pixar movie is Brave. I'm gonna let that sink in for a sec. I know. I love Brave. I know that this is like, most people would probably rank it like middle of the pack, which is so valid, you're good, but I really love Brave. One, let's talk about the animation. It's stunning. The landscaping is beautiful, and the hair alone could be like in the B tier, like without the movie. I mean, it's absolutely stunning, and I am obsessed with this movie. Yeah, so that is why I like that. And I think the style of this film is very specific, and they knew what they wanted to do with it. I think it's really, really cool. Let's get to the story. So I know that this is sort of like a weird stereotypical, like, oh, mom, I don't want to get married. Let's go against the patriarchy. Like, yes, great. All that is good. But I also kind of love the twist that like her mom turns into a bear. Like, who thought of that? They were just in the room one day and they were like, all right, so we know that there's mother-daughter conflict. How should we resolve this conflict? And it's like, Freaky Friday? No, that's been done before. Why don't we just turn her mom to a bear? And that was the conversation, and so that's what they decided to go with. And I kind of love it, honestly. I think it's really cool how, like, the mom is able to see more of Merida's side of things after she sort of is forced to take a step back, because otherwise they would have just battled it out. But I also think that like Merida grew a lot from that and learned how much she loved and cared about her family and her mother. So I think that's really, really cool, even though it's not, again, like the most original plot ever. I have a confession to make. I love Emma Thompson. She is my favorite actress, and so since she's in it, that automatically bumps it up 20 points. I just think she's so good in everything she's in. Yeah, this movie made me laugh. It made me cry. I think it's so satisfying to watch, and I love all the characters, and it's funny, and yeah, I feel a connection with this film that is personal and kind of beyond like anything I could say critically about it, if that makes sense. So that's why it's here. honestly. It's pure emotion. I'm not even thinking rationally about it, okay? I know. So yeah, you made it to the end. So tell me, now that you know you made it to the end, what are your favorite Pixar movies in the comments below? I love to hear, and I would love to hear your opinions. So make sure you subscribe to my channel. I upload videos every Friday, and they're all sort of about things I'm interested in. You know, you can check out my YouTube history. You know what I've been posting about. It's like books, it's anime, it's everything. So if you're into any of that, welcome to the club. I'm just gonna sign off. Have a good day, everybody, and I'll see you next week.